We call it a take for 99, where we give you a very expensive take for a cheap price in all of sports. And maybe we could dive into something we talked about already in further detail, or maybe we'll talk about something that hasn't been brought up on the show that we'll like to bring up on the show. And fellas, I would like to go first here because I would like to bring this out of the NFL and bring it into the NBA. I do believe that with the season kicking off next week, it's time for me to kind of get into my NBA flow. Obviously, the NFL, we are in the midway point, so we're going to talk a lot of football, but the NBA is here. And I want to pay some respect with it take for 99 here. And that is that Joel Embiid is under the most pressure to win an NBA Finals this season. There's no questions there. Okay, the 76ers went out and they went for broke this season. Okay, they signed him to another extension. I believe it was 3 years, $192.9 million, highlighted by signing Tyrese Maxey and Paul George to max contracts. And unfortunately, Paul George had an injury, but it's not as severe as it once looked. So, but that's a worry there that he's already getting injured on the team. And you look at Joel Embiid, and he just came out and said that, he's not going to play back-to-backs at all for the rest of his career. Okay, despite us not knowing if load management is effective or not. Does it even work? Okay, we don't know that. The reality is, for a player like Joel Embiid, it's not about playing back-to-backs. That's not going to win you a championship, bro. What's going to win you a championship is knowing how to fall properly. What's going to win you a championship is staying in shape. What's going to win you a championship is in the fourth quarter of a game 6 and 7. You show up and you show out. Okay, as a number one player whom you got paid to be. Okay, this is the most complimentary roster of Joel Embiid's career. There is no excuses anymore. He has to make an Eastern Conference Finals. He has to win a finals, dare I say. And my take for 99 is that Joel Embiid is under the most pressure to win in NBA Finals.
I would like to comment on that real quick. I think you're absolutely 100% correct. I think there's a handful of players in that group, right? And I think you could add Luka Doncic into that mix as well. These guys have the most pressure to win, especially the magnitude of how they play, their personalities. Joel Embiid is so entitled in the league, talking about, I'm not going to back-to-backs and all this other stuff. Like, what are you saying? Like, are you not trying to help your team win? You're not gonna play back-to-back games, and you're always sitting there and gloating about it, talking about it, especially when you're playing with another injury-prone player. As much as talented as he is, and I said this before on a different take, as talented as these guys are, they get so big of themselves that they forget what they're playing for. They forget what they're trying to accomplish. And basketball is a team game. It's not gonna take one guy to win it all. You need to be able to work with your teammates to enhance their skills and to showcase their skills to betterment of the team. Joel Embiid plays for self. He always has been, always will be. And he's done that week in, week out, year in, year out, game to game. He doesn't play for the team. He's looking for people to quote-unquote help him, but he's not letting himself be sacrificed in order for the betterment of the team. Everyone else needs to sacrifice for the betterment of him, and that's what his mindset is. So I agree with you. He has the most pressure to win a championship.
I think this is such a fascinating season for Philadelphia because really for the first time that I could remember, I think Daryl Morey deserves credit, and he had a great offseason. I love the move of bringing in Paul George. I love drafting Jared McCain. I love that Ricky Council's really coming on. I think he's a name to watch. He's been balling out in the preseason. I even like signing not only Caleb Martin too, but the dude from France that Zay, you were there, right? He put buckets on Yabusele, right? He put buckets on Team USA. He's looked good in the preseason. So I think this is a huge season for Philadelphia. Embiid, it's almost like with the back-to-back thing, I just think the Sixers need him to be healthy in the playoffs. And that's why they're doing it, because last year, I thought, although the Knicks won that series, that was probably the best Embiid has ever played in the playoffs. And he just didn't have enough gas in the tank because he clearly wasn't 100% healthy. If I'm the Sixers, that has to be your number one goal, making sure you get to the playoffs with a healthy Embiid, because I think that really cost them last year. And there definitely is pressure because it's crazy, guys. Like, we're putting pressure on him to win the NBA Finals. We forget, like, this guy hasn't even been to a conference finals yet. He's not won more than a round in the playoffs so far. And I think he really has to do that. But I think this team is equipped to. I really like their offseason, and there's no doubt a big year upcoming in Philadelphia. The city needs them, given the state of the Phillies and Eagles right now.
Yep. All right. Who's next?
I'll go real quick. My take for 99 is that the Rams will tank out the rest of the season and draft Shedeur Sanders to be their quarterback one for next season. All the lights are pinpointing towards that. Deion Sanders gave a list of teams that he doesn't want his son playing for. But what's bigger than Los Angeles? The city of bright lights, right? The media conglomerate that LA is. And Shedeur Sanders, the name he is, the name that his father is, all these big bright lights is spelling Los Angeles. It's spelling he's going to Los Angeles. And I think that's what it looked like. And Shedeur Sanders is playing outstanding in his collegiate career thus far. And he hasn't been talked about as much, right? The big hype right now is Cam Ward, where he's going and what team's going to draft him. I believe that next season, the way this season is currently going, Sean McVay leaves. I think McVay is gone. I don't think he comes back for another season. I think Matthew Stafford will be traded during the midst of the season, as Zach alluded to in the show. I think a lot of people will be wondering what is next for the quarterback who is going to come in and command the respect for the Rams. And I think Shedeur Sanders is going to be drafted to Los Angeles, just like his father wants. He wants the best for his son. Nothing's better than Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua right now. That's just the truth. With Kyron Williams as your running back. So I think they go in, they draft Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders welcomes that being over there, even though you don't really got to say because you go where you're drafted. But he welcomes being in LA where the expectations are high to win football games in a tough division. So my take 99 cents. Oh, just to repeat, is Rams tank the rest of the season. They draft Shedeur Sanders, and that's it.
Yeah. Zay, let me ask you though.
Go ahead.
You just dropped kind of a bomb in the middle. You think McVay's done after this year? Like, who's coaching this team?
I think if the season continues the way it goes and they move Matthew Stafford, then I think Sean McVay leaves. I think the only reason why he stood is because they had opportunities to still compete. And I think if you move Matthew Stafford, you kind of remove the opportunity to compete still. So I think he leaves because he was already on the cusp of leaving before Aaron Donald retired, the year before Aaron Donald retired. So he kind of came back on a last-second whim. I think he retires after this because it's like, we're not competing for championships. I'm not going to sit here and try to rebuild the team for another 5-10 years when he was already a foot out the door after they competed before.
No, I mean, it's a hot take, but it's a creative take. And, I don't have to agree with the take, but the take is creative as hell. I think when you look at the situation, in order for us to get there, where this take is a real take, they will have to get rid of Matthew Stafford. They got to get him out of there because if they want to tank, they're not going to be able to tank with Matthew Stafford. So they're going to have to either bench him or trade him in order to tank properly, in order to be in a place where they can draft Shedeur Sanders. Now, Shedeur Sanders is a very talented football player, and nobody's going to sit here and deny that. But he is immature at times. I've seen it call out his teammates before. So a team that's doing their due diligence has to look at the character as well. I'm not fond of his father like that. I think his father is too show-offish for me to have a list of teams like this is the NBA, like your players requesting a trade or something. I'm not a fan of that. So, whoever drafts Shedeur Sanders has to realize what they are drafting and what comes along with that. The attention, the name of the father. It kind of reminds me, low-key, and I know this may be weird, but just hear me out, Bronny James and Bronny. Obviously, when you're drafting Bronny James, if you're the Lakers, that it's going to come with a lot of media. You know that LeBron James is going to be very vocal with his son there. Same thing with Shedeur. Even though Deion is not playing, he's going to be very vocal. He's going to be on podcasts. There's going to be a light on your franchise, possibly a distraction. Do you want to draft that? Despite the talent that you're potentially bringing in. We'll see.
All right, guys. So my take for 99, I'm going to stay in the NFL. And I've hinted at this take a couple times throughout the show because we've hit on a few of these teams, but I just wanted to say this. I think that this offseason will be the offseason of regret for multiple owners around the NFL. And I'll explain what I mean. I mentioned it when we spoke about the Jets. I think that long-term, firing Robert Saleh was the right move. It was obvious that the Jets needed a leadership change. But again, they should have done it in the offseason, and that decision might cost them this season. The same thing could be said for the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones. How do you lose a playoff game 45-10 to the Green Bay Packers and decide to bring back Mike McCarthy when you've won 12 games each of the last 3 years and haven't been able to get to a conference title game, haven't been there since 96, and you see the Dallas Cowboys season is unraveling before our very eyes. Even Jeff Lurie, Howie Roseman, and the Philadelphia Eagles, I have a lot of respect for those guys. I like the way the Eagles are run as an organization, but let's face it, bringing back Nick Sirianni is going to cost this team. And I know that everyone said, oh, he just brought the Eagles to the Super Bowl last year. How do you fire him? It was obvious. That team fell apart last year. It's clear that the players in that locker room didn't take him seriously. He's got to go. And until he's out the door, you have a hard time believing this Eagles team is capable of anything. They have a major Nick Sirianni problem. And even Doug Peterson with the Jaguars, I was someone that bought into the Jaguars bounce back this year. I thought they were going to be much improved. I thought last year their collapse had a lot more to do with Trevor Lawrence's injury than people let on, but clearly that hasn't been the case. And that was just embarrassing on Sunday against the Bears. It looked like that team quit, especially for all these teams. Like, you could have hired Bill Belichick. The greatest coach of all time was out there. You're telling me that Bill Belichick is coaching the Cowboys right now, they wouldn't be a lot better? You're telling me that if he was coaching the Eagles right now, they wouldn't be a lot better? I just think this offseason is going to be known as the offseason of regret. And Bill Belichick is definitely going to be coaching in the NFL next year. I don't know why these owners were all so hesitant to make a big move and move on from their coach. Even Mike Vrabel's available. Pete Carroll was available. Like, there were plenty of good coaches available this offseason if you wanted to win, and none of these owners took the bite. Like, I know that these guys all have a lot of money, and winning might not be as important to them as some of the fans of these teams, but you would at least like to see them prioritize it, and they didn't do that by bringing all of these coaches back. So those were the 4 coaches I'm looking at. Robert Saleh with the Jets, Mike McCarthy with the Cowboys, Nick Sirianni with the Eagles, and Doug Peterson with the Jaguars. If Saleh was already fired and the other 3 have a very good chance, and you could make a legit argument of them being fired right now, I think each of those teams' respective owners will have some massive regrets for the way they handled this past offseason.
The bigger picture here for the Cowboys is the fact that Jerry Jones, say what you want about him not making off-season moves, he dished out the check. He did what he had to do. When it was all said and done, he paid Dak Prescott $60 million a year. He paid CeeDee Lamb $140 million. Okay, like, where's these cats at? You cannot be at home losing in this fashion and not score a touchdown. Like, I don't care who's coaching. I don't care if it's daggone Vince Lombardi back from the dead. Okay, coaching right now. Like, you gotta, as a quarterback, when you're getting paid like that, you gotta show up. If you're a wide receiver, you gotta show up. These guys is not doing what they gotta do. This team last year literally had the same issues. So it's not a Mike McCarthy major issue. Like, sure, he needs blame. He's the coach. But Dak Prescott was an MVP player last year with Mike McCarthy. He's not this year. What happened to that? Nick Sirianni should have been gone. Clearly, you cannot have a fractured relationship with the quarterback. At least Dak Prescott, stood up a couple days ago and said, nah, I don't want nothing to happen to Mike McCarthy. That's my guy. So at least he got his backing. But Jalen Hurts, does he even back Nick Sirianni? If not, he got to go. So I think everything you said is right. And yeah, I'll leave it like that. All right. Zay, any thoughts on that?
No, I don't. I think y'all both took the words out of my mouth. So I think one thing is it'll be very interesting this offseason on the coaching, what teams they elect to go to with coaching. I think, like Zach said, I think there'll be a couple more coach firings in a couple after the season's done. I will be interested to see what happens. Do teams elect to go after one of these coaches or go after a veteran coach on the market, or do they go the college route, which I've seen a lot of teams have been doing recently, just going after the college route or the coordinator route and see who works? Because I don't know if any team is comfortable going after a veteran coach any much longer. The team is growing. The NFL is growing. It's evolving, and it's evolving quicker than we've ever seen. And maybe they go after new or fresh ideas, new minds because of what's happening.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up another show of 99 Pod, and I'm looking forward to the next show. It was a stacked show today, and it's time for us to get ready for baseball and get ready for some more football this week. And at that time, we shall speak. Fellas, it was a good one. Looking forward to the next.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.